You shouldn't shy away from conflict in relationships because all relationships are going to encounter conflict at some point. Being defensive when there's conflict is counterproductive. It's much better to just listen to the other person, but not take anything they say personally, but observe where they're coming from. Because quite often conflict arises because the inability to express love or feel safe in expressing love. Instead of reacting to conflict or what the other person may be saying or projecting onto you, avoid projecting back onto them, avoid becoming defensive and taking what they're saying personally, but instead try to establish an understanding of what the root cause is. And it's not the thing, it's not the subject. It's a feeling of a lack of security, a lack of feeling heard, a lack of being understood. And by listening to each other, that's how you resolve the conflict. And quite often then you won't have to have that kind of conflict anymore. But it's very important to not take what the other person is saying personally, because it's not about you. Quite often you've triggered something in the other person, or they've triggered something in you that has brought up fears from your childhood, and then you project them onto your partner in the relationship, and then they may be experiencing the same thing, and they are projecting their fears from their childhood as well onto you. So you're not communicating with each other anymore, but instead you have almost like this AI algorithm, two chatbots talking back and forth to each other in an arguing competition. But there is no connection there because you're not talking to the person that you love, and they're not talking to the person that they love. Even though there's love in the relationship, when you go into that state, that defense mechanism, there's no awareness there. It's a closed loop system. So it's like two chatbots having it out. You're never going to get anywhere with that. And trust me, I know, because I've been through that many times in my life. It doesn't work. It's better to be silent and listen and then allow the other person to speak, even if it's painful. And it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful to bite your tongue and not get drawn into conflict. But someone has to take the initiative. Someone has to lead the way and allow the space for true vulnerability to be expressed. And the way to do that is to listen first and then ask, is there something deeper here? Let's try to get to the bottom of this, because this is obviously some triggering here from our past childhood, past experiences, past relationships that we unfairly project on our partners, and we experience that from them as well. So we need to sit down and really look at that and take accountability, especially for our reaction to being projected on. Because if you react correctly, which is not reacting, then you can diffuse this situation very, very effortlessly just by listening and asking questions from a place of love and understanding, because you're trying to understand them. You're not trying to compete with them. You're not trying to prove them wrong, because you don't need to prove them wrong, because when they come back into a space of self-awareness, they'll know whether they're wrong or right, and it's nothing to do with you. In a relationship, you're there to support and understand and love each other. Nowhere in a relationship are you supposed to be in competition with your partner. Nowhere in a relationship do you have to constantly prove your integrity to each other. Because you've entered a relationship because you love each other and you respect each other. That means that you have to continue to respect each other and build trust. There's a certain level of investment and there's a certain level of risk involved in that, but you entered into a relationship with someone because you are brave enough to build something, even though you know there's a possibility it could all fall apart. But as long as you keep showing up with the highest integrity that you can imagine and embody that, no matter what you're confronted with, because sometimes emotions can get the better of us. And if we can see that the other person in the relationship is becoming overwhelmed with emotions, that is not our cue to join them in that, but to hold space and allow them to come back to a balanced level with you again. And that creates trust, that creates balance in the relationship. And I know from my own experience, when you go the other way, when you're constantly trying to please the other person, you're constantly trying to defend yourself, you're trying to justify yourself, you're reacting to judgment, even though it's not true, so you feel like you have to defend yourself. All of that, that's in the past. You need to drop that, because that is not helping your relationship. Now, if someone keeps disrespecting you like that, then obviously that's a situation where you probably need to remove yourself from the relationship peacefully. But in most cases, the two people in the relationship are, and if they're healthy individuals, and everyone's got some blind spot, we all have blind spots. And that's why in relationships we help each other, and we help each other to become more aware of ourselves. So there is always going to be a certain amount of mirroring in relationships. But if you have the self-awareness that you don't take what the other person's saying personally, because they are expressing their own internal world, their reaction to their feelings and their triggers. So we don't need to take it personally anymore, because that's not being there for each other, because that's very competitive, and that's not what relationships are about. I know it's difficult, but it's worth it. And that's how you build trust. That's how you build a long-lasting relationship. That's how you build a relationship that is based on peace and understanding and mutual respect and love. By allowing each other the space to be yourselves. And that's another part of it. People are unhappy in relationships because they feel like they cannot be authentic. They feel like they're walking on eggshells, that they have to fit a certain role or a certain a character that really isn't them. But maybe they never had to. Maybe you never had to. Because maybe that person actually fell in love with you because they saw your authenticity. But then you decided to play another role because you thought it would be perceived better. It would secure your relationship. No, you have to be authentic all of the time. And yes, we're always growing, because another purpose, the major purpose of relationships, is that you can grow together. That means you will challenge each other. And things, there will be times where there's going to be discussions needed to be had, not conflict, not arguments, but discussions, because there's always change in healthy relationships. There's always, you're evolving together because you're challenging each other to be a better version of yourself each time.